So you guys saw the last video, obviously very sad news on the RS3. Currently, I do have good news. The vehicle is in the shop. It is getting repaired. It's gonna be gone for a couple weeks. So in the meantime, I've been back in the BMW 340i. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you could probably look back at the 340 build series. Did some basic bolt-ons, upgrades, all that kind of stuff. Now, I have seen a lot of platform comparison looking at the B58 versus the DAZA found in the Audi RS3. And I think both platforms definitely have massive, massive potential. But I really would say when it comes to just that tremendous value, the B58 is just gonna be so much better for a number of reasons. Not to mention, of course, you know, if you want rear wheel drive, that's an option. If you're like me, more of an X-Drive, more of a Quattro kind of guy, you can do either drivetrain, depending on whatever platform you pick. If you're a performance car enthusiast, I think one of the continuous themes is always looking at kind of your best value when it comes to getting into a platform, knowing your upgrade pathway, and trying to make sure that you're gonna get the best for every dollar that you're gonna spend. And I think with the B58, it's just with the way these cars are priced and the capabilities with all of the available resources, there's just really not anything else that I could think of that comes into a fair comparison. Of course, the entry-level price point is going to be far more competitive with the B58 just because they're simply far more mass-produced. They're far more common. They come in so many different vehicles across the BMW lineup, whereas the Audi, it's limited to two models, being the RS3 and the TTRS. And as you guys may or may not know, the TTRS has now since been discontinued. So the last remaining 5-cylinder Audi is the latest generation of the RS3. Whereas you look at the B58, I mean, you've got your 240i, your 340i, your 440i, you've got your Supras, you've got your X3, M40is. I mean, there's plenty of BMWs out there that you can get with a B58. And if you're rear-wheel drive or an X-Drive, you can go either way. The other thing I'll say is, you know, with the DAZA platform, we can appreciate that robust, that aggressive, that exotic exhaust note that you get with the 5-cylinder, which I do think that kind of gives it that unique, that exotic flavor, which you don't really necessarily get on the B58. I do think the B58 does sound fantastic, but it just doesn't have that same unique characteristic that you get from the 5-cylinder. Now, when it comes to looking at the actual engines themselves, I definitely say that I think they're both pretty stout, robust motors, but amongst the RS3 community, it always seems that people are very, very cautious when it comes to going max effort on these stock motors. A lot of times you'll see frequent discussion where pretty much stage 2, full bolt-on E85, or if people are gonna do hybrid turbo setups, they might use torque limited files to help preserve the internals. And from what I've gathered, it just seems that there is a general fragile nature to these 5-cylinder engines. Whereas the B58s, it just seems so common nowadays that even on the older Gen 1 models, people are throwing hybrid turbos, full frame turbos, crazy setups running 500, 600, 700 plus wheel horsepower on stock motors. And seems like generally the consensus is they can really take a lot of power with the stock motors. Now, of course, with any aftermarket setup, nothing's promised. Anything could go wrong on a vehicle at any given time. Could be user error, could be an installation error, could be a tuning problem. Again, from what I've seen amongst the community with the information available, seems like the B58's definitely got the edge as far as being able to support more power when it comes to looking at the engines stock for stock. Now, it goes without saying, just based on the common use of the B58, if you were to find yourself in a tough spot where you needed to source an engine replacement, you're gonna have a much easier time just having so many different vehicles that are equipped with a B58 motor. So if you're looking for something used, you're gonna have a much easier time finding a used, fairly low mileage B58. On the flip side, with the Audi, the DAZA, obviously that only comes in those two specific models. The astronomical cost of a factory replacement engine is going to be tremendously high. I want to say the last time I looked up, the price point from the manufacturer is somewhere around the $30,000 price range. So that being said, even used, due to the scarcity of these motors, you're probably not going to find a whole lot. And then if you do find something that's clean, low mileage, and good running order, they're probably still going to want a decent amount of money for one of these used engines. So again, something to bear in mind when looking at the pros and cons, the ups and downs between the two models. When it comes to the transmissions, I think both definitely have their strengths and weaknesses. I like that aggressive, that raw, visceral experience that you get from the DSG. It's very firm, very snappy. And of course, sometimes in a daily driving scenario, if the car is going to be more of a street car, sometimes they're not always the most comfortable when it comes to sitting in traffic, bumper to bumper. That can be a little bit jerky from time to time. Whereas the ZF8 transmission found on the BMW, it's much more comfortable, especially when you're crawling through traffic or something like that. And of course, you obviously have the ability to increase the performance with both gearboxes through the use of transmission software. I do know the transmissions are awfully compared against each other, and a lot of people say, you know what, I feel like the 8-speed's just not as snappy as the DSG. Look, you upload your XHP Stage 2, Stage 3, put it in Sport Plus. I mean, I personally could not tell the difference. I mean, to me, even the 8-speed not being a dual clutch, in my perspective, again, owning and modifying both vehicles, I couldn't tell a difference. I mean, the ZF is just such an incredibly fast, snappy, responsive gearbox. I really couldn't tell. So I would say long-term review, like looking at both vehicles side by side, I would say at this point in time, I do prefer just the comfort and the versatility that you get with the 8-speed transmissions. But again, hey, I've owned 3 DSG Audis at this point. I'm definitely a fan. I know it is kind of a mechanical, clunky experience from time to time, but there's still something about the DSG that has a nice mechanical charm to it. So when it comes down to it, just get behind the wheel of both cars and see for yourself so you can formulate your own opinion. The other thing I want to talk about is when you look at ease of installation on the RS3, guys, if you're going to do a downpipe, this is going to be pretty much an all-day job. You're going to have to lower the subframe. You're going to need a special drive shaft removal tool, right? You're going to have to align the vehicle after the installation. You're going to be spending a hefty chunk of change on doing a Audi RS3 downpipe installation. Whereas the B58s, you could easily knock that out in a couple hours. You could probably do it at home in your garage. Most do-it-yourself car guys probably are going to be able to tackle a B58 downpipe installation fairly easily. So again, something to bear in mind when looking at the upgrade pathway for both vehicles. Now, as far as looks, styling, appearances, luxuries, interiors, I really think these are all different things that are going to fall into the opinions of the individual. It's fair to say at this point, the Audi RS3, at least for the previous generation, the 8V, 8V.2, generally most of these cars, they're fairly simplistic on the inside. They're fairly bare bones as far as how they are configured. If you take a look at the F-Series, that interior has been used on many BMWs for quite a few years, since all the way back in 2012 when the F30 was first introduced. So 2012 to 18, you're still gonna have like that basic, that traditional analog BMW interior. And obviously if you're looking at comparing to newer B58s, whether it be a G-Series BMW or a new Supra, obviously that's gonna provide a much more modern, up-to-date experience with all the newer tech and things of that sort. But for me as a car person, I'm kind of more of a basic meat and potatoes kind of guy. I'm not really getting that far into looking at like all the different bells and whistles. Within this discussion, I'm really kind of more focused on just the performance aspect, looking at the capabilities of both platforms. So leave a comment in the comment section down below, guys. If you've owned either the B58 or the DAZA platform, share your thoughts and feedback. Always curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. So going full circle on this one here, I can say having owned both platforms, they both have their ups and downs like anything else. I would say they're both fantastic vehicles to work with. They each have their own unique characteristics. If you're looking for the best value, I think it's fair to say you're gonna wanna look at the BMW. If you're looking for a little bit more of a unique, aggressive, exotic flair, I think that's where the RS3 or the TTS is really gonna shine with a 5-cylinder turbo. Well, that's all for this one, guys. Leave a comment down below, subscribe for more. I'll be sure to keep you guys posted with future updates. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.